What are we looking at?
Well, last week I brought you all the case of Douglas Mackey. He's a pro-Trump Twitter user who in 2016 tweeted out a meme targeted at Hillary voters, telling them that they could avoid the line and vote by text. To most people, that sounds funny or lame, possibly a mix of both. But to Joe Biden's Department of Justice, they saw a crime. The very first week in office, they indicted Mackey on a charge of conspiracy to deprive individuals of their right to vote. Prosecutors alleged that some 4,500 people called the number on the meme and that Mackey distributed. They honed in on Mackey's private messages, where he and other pro-Trump Twitter personalities reveled in the reach of their accounts, hoping they could trick, quote, dopey liberals not to vote. Now, is Mackey a good person? Probably not. But that's not enough to put somebody on trial. Ultimately, this trial was about whether satire online should be legal, even satire that is malicious, mean, and targeted, whether that should be illegal or not. Here is the meme. And to be clear, Mackey did not even make it. He only distributed it along with many others. Do you really believe any reasonable person would see this meme and otherwise not vote? The Biden Department of Justice certainly did. Apparently, so did a jury of Mackey's peers who convicted him in the Eastern District of New York on Thursday on conspiracy to deprive other American citizens of their right to vote. Already, the censorious establishment is doing backflips online over the victory of this case. Why? The government even put out a victorious press release about the verdict, put it as a warning to anyone else who may do so online. But a closer scrutiny of the trial itself is necessary. For the government to be truly ironclad in their case, they would have to prove that Mackey's meme crossed the satire line because people otherwise texted to vote rather than vote itself. Their theory of this case relied on the fact that some 4,500 people called this phone number. Yet, when his defense challenged prosecutors to bring forward one single witness who said that they were fooled, they could not do so. Let me repeat, not one person was called to the stand to testify that their civil right to vote was actually deprived by this meme, despite having their phone numbers. And that means from the facts of the case, on its face, all the government proved was that Mackey posted this meme, that some people interacted with the same phone number, and that he may have been malicious in his intent. As to the witnesses, the star witness at trial had nothing to do even with depriving anyone of votes. Instead, it was a dude named Microchip, who was part of Mackey's group chat. During this testimony, Microchip cast Mackey as a leader of the group who distributed memes targeted at liberals, but under cross-examination admitted two key things. Number one, he was testifying because he was cooperating with the FBI and pleaded to a reduced charge. Two, quote, there was no grand plan around stopping people from voting. So if there was no grand plan, there was no conspiracy, right? You can't prove a real conspiracy, and you can't prove a single witness was harmed. Then what are we doing here? Obviously, none of these questions mattered to the New York City jury that convicted Mackey, but one has to wonder if the politics of the area played into that, and also to the wisdom of bringing charges like this in the first place. Prosecutorial discretion is a hell of a drug, and immediately, with the precedent set, a lot of people are looking for similar examples and saying, hey, why isn't this person in jail? Many pointed to this tweet by Kristina Wong, a liberal Hillary supporter in 2016 who tweeted, quote, hey, Trump supporters, skip poll lines in election 2016 and text your vote. Tech votes are legit. Or vote tomorrow on Super Wednesday. That, along with the video that was viewed close to 1 million times. Now, if you ask me, that's funny. And just as ridiculous as the meme that Mackey posted. But now, by the standards the government has set, any of the 843,000 people who watched that video have been contaminated by Wong's conspiracy to prevent Trump supporters to vote. Now, curiously, Ms. Wong remains free and clear to this day. To be clear, she should remain so. So should Mackey. People say stuff on the internet they don't mean all the time. Worse, this has been rewarded now by the FBI for wasting their time policing Twitter trolls rather than letting child sex predators like Larry Nassar go free. As I reminded everyone last time, the nanny state behavior of the feds here is something that reveals a very, very deep rot. As Matt Taibbi discovered, FBI agents whose salaries we are paying were spending their time flagging moronic, tiny Twitter accounts, joking, including one who said, quote, I am a ballot counter in my state. If you're not wearing a mask, I'm not counting your vote, saying that every negative comment on the post she would add a vote for the Democratic Party. Or another example, the low follower user who tweeted, quote, I want to remind Republicans to vote tomorrow, and included the wrong date. This was flagged by FBI agents who wanted Twitter to take it down. It had 3 retweets. And under the standard of the now established Mackey conviction, they can claim anyone who saw that tweet and misinterpreted it could have had their civil rights violated, or a conspiracy to do so. The standard now has been set and the gauntlet thrown. We now live in a significantly less free internet. The best response to this, from an individual perspective, post less, even if you're anonymous. If you screw with somebody like Hillary, they will track you down to the ends of the earth.
I'm Aaron Mackey sitting in for Jimmy Dore here with Misha Pollan and Americans comedian Kurt Metzger, and our guest is Nick Cruz, host and co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. And remember this headline from Politico right before the November 2020 presidential election? Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo, dozens of former intelligence officials say. This was the claim signed by a number of former intelligence officials from the CIA and other agencies that this laptop of Hunter Biden was just entirely a Russian op. And among other things, the content of that laptop showed that Hunter Biden was trading on his family name for business opportunities. It was showing basic Washington corruption. And rather than allow people to learn about that story, it got censored on the fake claim pushed by these former intelligence officials that it was all a Russian operation. And even during a presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, Joe Biden cited this claim to make the argument that the laptop story was all just the work of Russia. So here he is citing this claim from these former intelligence officials.
50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
I still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation and a smear campaign, like you said.
Yes. I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's the last-ditch effort in this desperate campaign to smear me and my family. The vast majority of the intelligence people have come out and said there's no basis at all.
So that is Joe Biden.
Boy, he has really deteriorated since then. He looks like lucid there.
That is Joe Biden back in 2020, in most of those clips there, basically pointing to this letter from former intelligence officials saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was all the product of Russia. Well, guess what we learn now? We don't just learn, as we learned before, that this was all a scam, that actually the laptop was real. But now we learn that the Biden campaign asked those intelligence officials to write that letter. Here is Li Fong, the 50 intelligence former officials who falsely accused the 50 former intelligence officials who falsely accused the Hunter Biden laptop of being Russian disinformation. Letter in 2020 was organized by former CIA officials at the request of the Biden campaign, according to new testimony. And here is a recap of this new testimony from CBS News.
According to a letter released Thursday night from the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees, former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morell told congressional investigators that days after the laptop story, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, then a Biden campaign advisor, reached out to Morell and set in motion the events that led to the intelligence officials' public statement.
So you get that this wasn't just a fake claim that Russia was behind Hunter Biden's laptop done to help the Biden campaign. This fake claim was done at the behest of the Biden campaign. And we're only learning this now. Here's the headline from the New York Post, whose story on the Hunter Biden laptop was censored as a result of that fake claim that this was just a Russian operation. Here's the headline: ex-CIA chief spills on how he got spies to write false Hunter Biden laptop letter to help Biden. Joe Biden's presidential campaign prompted former acting CIA Director Mike Morell to help Biden by organizing 50 colleagues to sign a letter in October 2020, falsely claiming that damning emails from Hunter Biden's laptop published by the Post were Russian disinformation. Morell, identified as a potential director of the CIA under Biden, said he organized the letter to, quote, help Vice President Biden because I wanted to help him win the election, unquote. So they were accusing Russia of putting out the laptop to help Trump, when in reality, they were falsely accusing Russia of being behind the laptop in order to help Biden.
Who's he saying this to? The reporter?
Mike Morell, the former deputy director of the CIA, is testifying before Congress. That's why the truth is coming out now, is because he's testifying under oath, where if you don't tell the truth, you get accused of perjury. So that's why we're getting this now. Until Blinken's call. Now, Blinken is now the Secretary of State. And before he became that, here he was asking his intelligence friends to put out a lie in order to help Biden. Until Blinken's call, Morell said he had no intention of writing any statement exonerating Biden, but he agreed that the conversation with Blinken, quote, triggered that intent, unquote, in him. Morell testified he sent an email telling Nick Shapiro, former deputy chief of staff to former CIA chief John Brennan, that the Biden campaign wanted the statement to go to a particular reporter at the Washington Post and that he should send the statement to the campaign as well. So the Biden campaign asked their intelligence friends to put out this lie, and they specifically handpick a Washington Post reporter who they can rely on as a stenographer to put this out. But in the end, Shapiro took the letter to Politico, where they found another stenographer, which he published on October 19th under the headline, Hunter Biden Story is Russian Disinformation. Here's the headline again from Politico back in October 2020. Mike Morell testified that after the debate, he received a call from Steve Ricchetti, chair of the Biden campaign, to thank him for writing the statement. He was the head of the Biden campaign at the time. Steve thanked me for putting the statement out. The thank you with Ricchetti was organized by fellow signatory Jeremy Bash, who I worked with at Beacon Global Strategies, and who is active politically, Mike Morell testified. Bash, Panetta's former Bash, who's the former chief of staff to the former Pentagon secretary and CIA chief, Leon Panetta, now he's a MSNBC analyst, was later appointed by Biden to a prestigious role on his president's intelligence advisory board. So that's your reward for putting out a lie to help Biden get elected, is you get appointed to the president's intelligence advisory board.
What do you think Mehdi Hassan's going to get for his cooperation?
And Lee Fong points this out, that the Biden campaign backed Hunter Biden 2020 intelligence letter was crafted by the same Beacon Global Strategies intel officials, this is a firm in Washington, involved in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign effort declaring Bernie as a threat to national security. And this is an important tie because this means, as I pointed out, that in 2 consecutive presidential elections, the Democratic candidate generated fake claims about Russia, spread them through intelligence officials and media stenographers, and did so to deflect from factual disclosures about their corruption. So we saw that in 2016, where the DNC emails were released, and the Clinton campaign, via its contractor CrowdStrike, generated the unsupported claim that Russia was behind those emails, and also via a different contractor, Fusion GPS, put out a conspiracy theory that Trump was a Russian conspirator. And now we have in 2020 the same Russiagate playbook. Now you have the Hunter Biden laptop showing corruption by Hunter Biden. And what does the Biden campaign do? Ask their intelligence community friends to put out a fake claim that Russia is behind all of this. So let me bring in Nick Cruz, co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. What's your take on this story?
I think the fact that you're even covering this, Aaron, is very Trumpian, because Trump was uniquely dangerous because he harmed the integrity. He questioned the integrity of the intelligence agencies. Do you guys remember
the community? The intelligence community.
So that's what one of the things that liberals said that made Trump uniquely evil, that he's undermined the intelligence agencies. I think having no trust in the intelligence agencies and undermining them is probably one of the most patriotic things you can do, especially after stories like these. Because before there was criticism, Noam Chomsky wrote a book about it, on how the media will just take sources from the intelligence agency, including the CIA, and they will publish it uncritically. We have advanced from that, Aaron, from where it's just not, they're just not taking sources. They will literally allow the intelligence agencies to make up a story, and then they will publish it as fact, and then censor anyone who disputes it. Because once again, we come from a smaller channel on Revolutionary Blackout Network, and the Hunter Biden story, Aaron, was something that we was terrified of touching, because if we debunk the mainstream propaganda on Hunter Biden with the size of the channel that we are, they could have struck us down, and it would have been over. It would have been just the same with COVID. That's why those 2 issues we had to be very careful of.
And let's just stop there for 1 second before we get to this letter to point out that in 2016, George Bush and Dick Cheney's CIA director, Michael Hayden, went to the Washington Post to endorse Hillary Clinton and write an article saying Donald Trump is a Russian agent unqualified for the presidency. Michael Morell, Obama's CIA director, so one from a Republican, now a Democrat, went to the New York Times and did the same thing. Ardently endorsed Hillary Clinton and said Donald Trump is an agent of the Kremlin and therefore unqualified for the presidency. Why was the entire CIA, the directors under first George Bush and then Barack Obama, so united in their desire to stop Donald Trump from ascending to the presidency and ensuring Hillary Clinton won instead. And then here those same people are in 2020, the same exact people who signed that letter, who spread lies to the American people to interfere in our politics with a disinformation campaign with the aid of the media, who did the same thing. And so now that the Republicans have control of the House and are able to engage in oversight and investigations, one of the things they're investigating is the origins of that letter, as they should. That was the CIA interfering in our politics, our domestic politics, the one thing they're never supposed to do, and doing so with lies. So the House, to their credit, wants to find out what happened. And so they interviewed one of the key people who organized the letter, former CIA director under Obama, acting CIA director, deputy director of the CIA, Michael Morell. And here in this letter, Jim Jordan, who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, along with Michael Turner, who's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, wrote a letter to Anthony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, who at the time was a senior advisor in the Biden campaign, asking him about the role that he, Anthony Blinken, played in organizing this letter. And the reason they know he did that was because Michael Morell testified that he did. So here we have on the screen the key excerpts that are brand new facts about who was really behind this letter. How did this letter come to deceive the American public and interfere in and manipulate the 2020 election? And they interviewed Michael Morell. Here's the letter. It says, quote, "The committees, meaning the Judiciary and Intelligence Committees, recently conducted a transcribed interview with Michael Morell, a former deputy director of the CIA and one of the 51 signatories of the public statement. In his transcribed interview, Morell testified that on or around October 17, 2020, you, meaning Secretary Blinken, reached out to him to discuss the Hunter Biden laptop story. At the time, you served as a senior advisor to the Biden campaign. According to Morell, although your outreach was couched as simply gathering Morell's reaction to the Post story, it set in motion the events that led to the issuance of the public statement. Morell testified under oath, quote, this is the question, but prior to Secretary Blinken's call, you did not have any intent to write this statement. Morell, answer, I did not. Question, okay, so his call triggered Morell. It did, yes. Question, that interest in you triggered that interest in you? Morell, yes, absolutely.